all about the creative process and how it lifts your life in various areas, including your leadership, your interpersonal awareness, and your mindset. And so we're at so many other things. Those are just the top three I'm listing off at the top of my head. And I want to share with you what we're going to be talking about today, because I love to gather conscious women who are exploring these same types of similarities in their work as well. And so today, what we're going to talk about is the meaning of leadership, supporting versus competing, and investing in your voice. And I'm so excited to dive into this because I have two beautiful expert women here with me. First, I have Vasi Huntalas, who is the founder of Ignite Your Soul, and she is a breakthrough mindset mentor and professional intuitive. She guides new and seasoned entrepreneurs through the inner shifts that create real world momentum fast. And she is using a powerful mix of intuitive insight and subconscious clearing. And she helps you maximize your impact as a visionary leader. So there's a lot of wealth of information there and wisdom. And then we have our beautiful Stephanie McAuliffe. And Stephanie, I'm the worst at pronouncing names, so please step in and correct if I've mispronounced your last name.
It's McAuliffe.
McAuliffe. Okay. Pardon me. I'm really sorry. Stephanie speaks, writes, and teaches on the human condition and the impact of our energetic patterns. As a multidimensional personal transformation coach and energy healer, she deeply understands the impact of trauma held within the body and the importance to our vitality to clear and heal it. As the founder of the Way of the Diamond Warrior, she brings the wisdom of her 27 years on Wall Street to help leaders live a life free of the constructs that have held them back. Stephanie is the author of two international best-selling books, The Impact of Silence, Self-Mastery Practices for Women, and The Message in the Bottle, Finding Hope and Peace amidst the chaos of living with an alcoholic. So you can see already by the two guests that I have joining us today that we're going to have a really great conversation around leadership. And just to give you all a little understanding of my background, I spent 15 years in an academic medical facility, and I led a department of women and men that were striving to provide the best type of customer service they could. And so, in that environment, in an academic environment, there's very many layers of leadership, as my guests also know, in their fields and the leadership that they've experienced. And so, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you both today?
Great. Excited to be in this conversation with both of you.
And the same. Yeah, it's really great to be here with you both.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We talked about this the last time we were on together, and we were discussing leadership and the sense of non-competitiveness with entrepreneurial women. And I think that that's a unique situation. I think that I find myself in a lot of spaces with women where it's the intention is set up to be non-competitive, yet in the mix of it, it starts to feel somewhat competitive. And I don't know, do you both have that type of experience in your worlds as well, or is it just me?
You know, what I've noticed, especially in recent years, and maybe this is post-pandemic, I'm not sure what it's due to, shifts in energy, but the women's groups that I'm in right now for networking are so incredibly supportive. And so I'm experiencing that less and less, is that competitiveness. It's more like, how can I understand what you're doing, to refer, to support, to point you to resources? it's really a very different, and I would say the last 2 years is
Mm,
what I've been experiencing and quite honestly enjoying. It's very refreshing to feel like you have others that are with you because being an entrepreneur can be very isolating and lonely.
yes,
So it's nice to
absolutely.
collaborate with others, just like what you're doing here,
Mhm.
Josette. And I loved the last time when we had a conversation, we talked afterwards, and this is the topic that emerged. So, talk
Mhm,
about collaboration.
right?
This episode is a collaboration of the three of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with what Vasi says. And I think it comes to personally the shift in my own energy, in the strength of my mission and my vision of what it is that I'm creating, that I don't need to compete. And
Mhm,
so if I feel like I need to compete, I will be in groups with people who are competing
that's true.
because it was my energy calling that in. What is meant for us will never be withheld. And it took me a while to learn that. And now, like Vasi, I'm in groups where we're supportive of each other because we're all bringing our own gifts, our wisdom, our magic.
Mhm,
No one can do what you do like you do it, Josette. The same with you, Vasi. And so when we're in that space of we're all doing similar things, and
mhm,
yet we have our own unique, special secret sauce. So we don't need to compete.
right.
And yet there's still a lot out there. And when
Mhm,
I go into a group and I sense there is competition, I say thank you for the experience and I go elsewhere.
exactly. Exactly. I love that you both have shared this because I think it's really important to listen to yourself first, to recognize what you feel first. And if you're feeling like there's something not quite right, then it's up to you to take care of yourself and do something different. And I find that, like, when I am in the spaces where I know there's support, I have a wonderful group. Stephanie, you and I are in this same group, Her Nation, in H Club, and it I'm putting a little plug in there. And that is a place where I feel like what you were saying, Vasi, very supported, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you have to find those spaces for yourself, especially as an entrepreneur, because it is very lonely, as you mentioned. You are kind of like in your own bubble, and it's easy to you're so close to what it is that you're doing. It's sometimes difficult to take a step back and have an objective purview of it. So it is really helpful to have others that can help you with that. And so find your right space and
And
don't.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I was going to say, and to add to the plug for H Club, it's about business. It's
Yes.
helping us with our business skills. It's
Hmm.
not about our gifts.
Yeah.
It's not about the specifics of what it is that you do. It's getting out there. It's our sales. It's our marketing. It's our tech.
Hmm.
It's all those things to help us
Right.
being better in business,
Yes.
not our skill set.
Yes. And I don't want to leave you out, Vasi. Would you like to plug your groups?
Sure, sure. So, a couple groups. One is the Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs, and it is both virtual and in person throughout, well, globally as well. And Josette and I are here in Southern California, so there's several chapters here, but they're also elsewhere. And then the other group is called Connect for Success, and that's also in person and virtual. And I just can't say enough about both groups. They both focus on business, as you were both talking about. And at the same time, it's so helpful in terms of not just skill building, but relationship building as well and business building. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Well, so we have some good suggestions for any of you out there who are interested in looking for something more. And you can always drop a comment, and we'll get back to you, or I'll get back to you. Sorry. And I can give you more information if you want it. So let's get going on our conversation because I really want to dive into some other questions that I think are really important for us to really talk about. And the first is leadership can mean different things to different people. And how do you personally define leadership? And how has that definition evolved over time? Can I start with you, Stephanie? Do you mind hopping in on that one?
Sure. So, leadership when I was on Wall Street was about command and control.
Mhm.
It was find the best person to do something, get it done, and move on. It wasn't, there was some collaboration, and yet the environment of Wall Street is so energetic that there isn't a lot of time for some of the collaboration that I found as an entrepreneur. So it has shifted from one of competition to collaboration. And Wall Street is very aggressive. It's a very masculine energy. And I define leadership now as really bringing in the best aspects of our masculine and our feminine. And I actually just had a piece published on the embodied leader.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how we really combine the best of both, because it's not about one or the other. It's really what are the best aspects. And when something comes up that is challenging me, rather than focusing on the person where the challenge is coming from, what is it that's for me to focus on so I can understand it better and shift my perspective? Because leadership is really, rather than command and control of the outside, it is one of being centered and allowing it to ripple from the inside out.
Yes, you're here. I agree with that. How about you, Vasi?
There's so much of what Stephanie said that I also agree with and have experienced. For me, I started my career pretty much in corporate, and that was all about roles and titles and assigned leadership, I would say. Like you were made a leader. It wasn't the recognition that each one of us is a leader. And as I actually did graduate work in leadership development, and my definition evolved after that, and my own exploration of what leadership is and looks like for me, which was very different because I was for years, probably 25 years, have been involved in feminine circles and feminine exploration of that energy. And where I stand now is that leadership is a conscious use of our energy to inspire, engage, and support others. It's an expression of our purpose as it comes through us. And leadership is also not something that's given to us, it's something that is inherent to who we are. And so that expression of each of our leadership will be unique to us, it'll be unique to our purpose, and it'll be unique to where we are in terms of our development, our spiritual development, our emotional development, our professional development as well. It's a reflection of our essence and our humanity, I would say.
Very well said. I love that expansion on what you just mentioned, because I think that so often leadership gets misunderstood. And as you touched on, Stephanie, a lot of people just immediately think that it's about command and control. That as long as I'm showing up and telling everyone what to do, then I'm in leadership. I'm in my leadership. And I found through my own leadership journey, as I was able to kind of go through leadership in baby steps. So I first had 6 people, then I had 24 people, then I had 40 some odd people, et cetera, et cetera. And through that journey, I learned so much about myself, because as a leader, you both have touched on this, it comes from the inside. And I loved what you were alluding to, Stephanie, in the sense of when there's something, an issue or a person that presents a problem or concern, then it's to an opportunity. What is that situation or that circumstance showing up for you to discover and for you to then be able to lead with? And I love that, and especially because I ran a call center, so we were very focused on, on the customer or patient calling in, and so that provided me to hire. It helped me hire people that had a certain level of empathy,
Mm. Mhm.
and that was one of the greatest joys that I had, was leading a group of people that had a level of empathy that could, um, start to understand themselves even more by providing that empathy. So it's more than a phone call, people. It's a lot more than just, answering the phone. And, I think that, we often get, so trapped in, like, when you lead, everything stops with you. So, no matter what's happening in the areas that you're leading in, if there's issues, that stops with you. And I think that that gets missed sometimes. At least that's what I have found in my own experience. How about either of you?
Yeah, and one of the things that I found is that being a leader
Mhm,
was, and this was especially in my last big assignment on Wall Street, was being a buffer so that my team could do the work that they needed to do, and it was like I was the buffer between senior leadership within the organization, and it was a multinational company,
mhm.
and it was like I was the mama bear
Yeah.
for my team, so that they knew they were supported. They could come to me with
Mm,
issues, because at this point I had really gone much more deeply into my own personal development, and so I saw things from a different perspective. And so it wasn't about command and control. It was about, like you did with your call center,
yeah.
giving people the space to be human.
Mhm,
And people thrived in that, or
mm,
in that energy, in that situation, because they knew they could come in, they could do their work, they could be creative, they could come up with some ideas, and it wasn't just about meeting a deadline.
mm, mhm. There's more to it than that, right?
There's a lot more, and then senior leadership knew what I was doing, and sometimes I took hits, and that's
Mhm,
what part of being a leader in an organization is sometimes,
mhm.
and
Yeah,
it still allowed the team to do what they needed to do.
exactly. It rests on your shoulders. It's like, being a parent. There's so much you don't that you protect your children from, and you protect your employees from, or the people you lead.
Mhm.
Vasi, I know that you've had a lot of experience working with groups and facilitating and more than that, so please share.
Yeah. The word that's coming to me is responsibility.
Mm,
And just as my definition of leadership has evolved, so too has my definition of responsibility.
yeah.
And I think many of us have heard that responsibility is really the ability to respond, right? And when I think about leadership and groups, it's like the old assumption is that the leader will be responsible for everything, right? And what I loved about what you were saying, Stephanie, is that it's about um, and empowering isn't the right word, but allowing others to step into their most supported leadership, right? So that they're also showing up as a leader. And when I used to work with teams in conflict, like high performing teams that were starting to break down, and I was consulting and coaching, and I would just look at that and be like, every single one of those team members is absolutely amazing. But something happens with the dynamic of coming together and the expectation that we're in it for ourselves,
Mm,
and as opposed to how can we support each other to rise to that next level, you know? And then there's that breakdown that becomes a breakthrough. It's like at that time when we're rubbing against each other and we're in conflict and there's some very different personalities, it's like, how can we use that to actually amplify our impact? How can we use that to be operating at a whole other level? And of course, you know, setting ego aside is a huge thing, but there's also, let's align on what we're here to do together. And whether that's within ourselves, like getting really clear about what's the intention that I'm going to accomplish, how am I going to lead from that energy, from that place, or whether it's getting a team clear, right? On what is, let's let go of that ego and let's align with our mission, our shared purpose, our shared vision for what our purpose is to create together. So that's my very long answer, which, you know, we can also explore.
I love that. I mean, I think that you really kind of brought in a different layer that, you know, we hadn't really discussed yet. And that is finding the place within each team that allows them to thrive the most. And giving that, and once people are on the same page and are clear about the mission, I think that's kind of the biggest piece, is that clarity around the mission of whatever it is that you are doing as a group really helps them to start to come together, right? Like it's like the glue. And so I love that. And it leads us right into, you know, in a culture that often pushes competition, because I think that that's sort of like the jitters that they have to get out of their system, right? Is this competitiveness, and maybe it is, and maybe it isn't, but I think there's a layer of that somewhere. And as the path, we think that that's the path to our success. And what does it look like to lead from a place of collaboration and support instead, which, Vasi, you started to talk about a little bit. So can you kind of relay some of your experiences when you saw them being successful and what that looks like?
Yeah, you know, to do that, I want to just break apart a few of the myths that cause that energy of competition. And one of them is there's only so much. There's only so much time. There's only so much attention, resources that I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And then that sets up I want to say combative energy, right? It's like we're competing because there's only so much. And that's a very destructive belief to teams, because then right there we're in our silos as opposed to being able to find the connections between what we're doing. And so that's one piece. And then presents me to your question again, Josette, because it sounded like you wanted an example.
Yes, I was looking to see what kind of, what's it look like? What's that vision look like when a team has let go of that competitiveness with one another and actually starts functioning as a collaboration?
Yeah. So what that looks like is that each person has a clear understanding of their strengths and, for want of another word, their purpose as well. It's like what they bring to the team. And then when they come together, each person is at the same time standing in their own leadership, but also in a way enhancing what the others are contributing. So it looks like clear communication. It looks like clear goals, knowing what we're working towards, having a shared understanding and a time frame, and how we're going to do it. And it looks like, surprisingly enough, conflict sometimes. Because if you're having clear communication, right?
Right.
And there might be some time pressure to get deadlines done, it looks like, oh, we might have to have some tough conversations around accountability about why something didn't get accomplished. Do you need more support? But from a place where it's really ensuring the other person is getting what they needed. Not blame, not shame, not judgment, but support, compassion, clarity, those sorts of things. So it can look like conflict at times. It's how we handle that, those times of breakdown. that really shows whether we are collaborating, because we're willing to be honest and we're willing to be direct with each other.
That's really good. Do you think that there are ground rules that have to be set up for that kind of?
Oh, absolutely. I always started anything, whether it be, as a manager, someone coming into the group, sharing the ground rules, or whether it was a coach or consultant with teams in conflict. Here's our agreement. But most importantly, co-creating agreements together.
Mhm.
Who do we want to be with each other? How do we want to act with each other? What are our non-negotiables? So that it's not just the leader saying these are the ground rules,
Right.
but what else do you feel is important to have in our time together that would allow you to be the most productive, the most positive, the most fun too? And
Mhm.
I've had a lot of groups bring in fun, like through the ground agreements, and they'll be like, what else is missing? Well, I want to have fun. Yes, let's agree to do that, right?
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you, Vasi. I think that was such a great explanation, and I loved how you teased out the competitiveness piece of that, and shared how expansive that can be. Stephanie, how about yourself?
I love everything that Vasi shared, and underlying all of this is knowing why we're doing what we're doing.
Hmm.
When I was back on Wall Street and we had a meeting with the CFO, there were over a dozen transformation programs happening across finance within the organization. And I remember sitting in the meeting and I asked him, why are we doing this? And he wasn't able to answer the question. Well, if the CFO can't answer the question, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Because it's a corporate mandate, because we need to.
Hmm.
People are very comfortable even in processes that take them twice as long than if they were improved. Like, we're comfortable with, as I say, the hell that we know. Even though we don't like it, we don't like change. And if we as leaders can't articulate why we're undergoing a large effort, then our team isn't able to connect.
Right.
When we know why, and then as individuals know the magic that we're bringing to the effort of what it is that we're creating and why we're doing it, sometimes there is conflict. And yet I've found that the conflict is reduced because we're connected with our skill set and the magic of what it is that we're bringing to help contribute to the bigger why.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I mean, it's really true. I have a lot of experience working in groups to, um, well, I was part of the reengineering team that put this call center together that I ended up running. And so that I think the things that you're both talking about, I experienced those firsthand and completely agree with both of you. And knowing the objection of what we're doing, what is the purpose of it, is at the core of everything else that you're doing. You can't set it up like Vasi, shared with us in a team. You can't do that unless you have that information, because then it's going to cause even more conflict in the group if you don't have it. I'd like to kind of talk a little bit more. I think that we've talked about competition, and I just kind of want to wrap that up before we move on to something a little bit more, because I think that, you both have mentioned, spot on the things that cause competition, which have to do with feeling like there isn't enough. And I think sometimes even underneath that, we think we're not enough. And so that sparks that feeling that we have to go out and get what's available for us. And I also think sometimes that competition looks very, very stingy. can look stingy, and where we're not willing to share with each other. And, I know that all of us here have a different point of view on that. Our mindset is different than, maybe maybe a past version of ourselves or even people that we've encountered. And so, I think that once we have that opportunity to sort of see ourselves differently and recognize that, we have unlimited potential and that there's open possibilities, I think that that's where the door opens to let go of feeling so competitive and know that anything is possible for you and that there's always enough because you're enough.
Mm.
I just kinda wanted to close that with that little put a little bow on it. I'd like to kinda move on, though, to talk about, have either of you ever experienced a moment where choosing to support someone instead of compete? So we're kind of moving on. Instead of compete with them, change the outcome for the better, and can you share that story?
I have a juicy one.
Okay, let's dive in.
Still in that organization, but in a whole different part of the business. There was another large transformation because most of what I've worked on was capital development, very large transformation programs within all of the organizations I worked with. And the CIO had a senior leader who was in a position to run a large part of this transformation program, and the leader didn't trust the person working for them. And so put me working for that person so that I could, quote unquote, spy on them, which put me in a horrible position because my boss didn't trust me. I didn't trust them. And they knew that I was put in their group to basically report back on them. So it was no win all around. And yet, and then the people that worked for her, who trusted her, automatically didn't trust me. And yet there was an end of year report, and I was in charge of the program management office. There was an end of year report that was due, and I actually took the time and individually met with the people within the group and pulled in reports and a lot of information and created what was a really good year-end summary analysis and report of what was being done, what was coming, that made her look good, that made the team look good, that made everyone look good. So it wasn't about reporting back on her because I refused to do it, even though I was put in that position. It was one of, we're all here to do something. Let's do our jobs in the best way that we can. Now, needless to say, not long after that, I left that whole department because there were other things that happened. And yet she actually praised me on, look at this work that was created, that I wasn't there to basically stick a knife in her back. I was there to I was there to do a job. And I rose above the real petty energy and nature and the situation that I had been put in because I wasn't there to be a rat.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a sticky situation to be put in the first place, and to come out of that and have a level of respect with, someone who probably didn't have that when you walked in the door.
Oh, not at all. And they had a reputation.
Mhm.
So it was without having real conversations,
Yeah.
people were making presumptions of what people were and were not capable of doing and how they really wanted to succeed within their roles
Wow.
and how we could help each other succeed.
Yeah. That's a great example. Thank you. Thank you for the story. How about you, Vasi?
Well, I have a corporate story to share as well. It seems where competition is was alive and thriving, at least it was when I was there.
Yes, it is.
And I was in high tech at a time when there was explosive growth, and
Mm.
then there would be downsizing. There would be this big and then layoffs, this and big layoffs. So one day I got called into the office of my manager and her manager, and they had been given the it was another layoff, and there was going to be 60% cuts. And I had a team of 14. And basically, what they said to me is, you're going to have to choose between yourself and your this one employee. And that one employee was a magnificent, skilled, just like the perfect employee. And when I became a manager in that department, she was the first one. That was my first experience in managing and leading. And so I knew her very well. I had helped her develop, I had supported her, and I knew her to be an extremely high performer. So it was a difficult situation to be put in. And so I sat there in that office. I can remember it as though it was yesterday. And I remember thinking, I know that both of us are meant to be here. There's not a choice to make. So they set it up as competition, kind of like I had to justify one of us staying. And I remember just thinking to myself, there was the human side, which was I had a mortgage, I had a dog, I was the sole
Yeah.
responsibility of, my responsibilities. And if I was laid off, I had no idea what I would do because I was in a transition and I knew that something else was going to come, but I wasn't ready for it. I also knew it wasn't fair to the company in terms of both of us being gone. There would be something missing. We were both brought very different things. So in that meeting, I trusted and I advocated for both of us. And I said, I trust that you will make the best decision for the department and for the company. And I walked out of there. And it wasn't more than an hour later that they called me back in again and said that they had figured out a way to keep both of us.
Wow.
And I didn't need to know the details. I ended up learning how they did it, but it was actually very creative how they, figured out how to meet that, quota they were given, and at the same time keep both of us. And I never shared that story with the employee. And what was really wonderful is she stayed on even longer than I did, and I was able to see my next step and go on and just which launched my coaching practice and everything. So it was just a really wonderful way of just trusting in others' leadership as well. And so that's where I felt like there was this collaboration in that example.
I think both of you have kind of given that example in your own ways that, part of seeing through to a better outcome by letting go of being competitive, that it's you did more of human being than human doing. And that has produced such great results because you were able to kind of actually not let go of being competitive and think about the person and also your relationships. And I think that that is something that's unique that women can help bring to leadership roles and into spaces where leadership is important. So I love both of those examples, and thank you for that. I think that that's, it really just shines through the experience of having trust. And like you said, Vasi, trusting that the right decision will be made by the leaders that you had to answer to at the time. So, what does investing in your voice mean to you? And why is it essential for conscious leadership and soulful living? So we kind of started to talk about it there just for a moment. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I wrote a whole book on it. The impact of silence and our self-mastery practices. It's understanding how we've been silenced, and a lot of it comes from our formative years.
Mhm.
The messages that we hear. I actually just saw something on Instagram the other day where there's a movement where parents are starting sentences and then their kids are finishing them. Like some of the toxic messages that we heard of children should be seen and
Mm.
instead of not heard, it's their child will finish it. And it's actually showing that the younger generation isn't carrying some of the quote unquote rules that we were taught. And it's also very healing for the parent to hear that I'm doing something right, first of all, with my children. We don't have to carry these, we don't have to perpetuate, and we can break the cycle.
Right.
And so investing in our voices, understanding how we've been silenced, what are the messages that we took on, and what are the cycles that we are meant to break, because many of us grew up under command and control. We don't talk about these things, the secrets, or just the bypassing of what it was that we were experiencing. And all three of those dynamics can be very toxic to and for us. So it's essential, really, as leaders, to understand where it is that we came from and the energies of the messages that we took on so that we can heal them and really stand in our center. It is the balance of the masculine and the feminine. It's interesting in that boundaries are thought to be a strong masculine attribute, and yet we all need strong personal boundaries.
Right.
And with that comes our authentic voice.
Love that, Stephanie. And Stephanie has a book. She's written a book on it. So, and I know that we have, I'll make sure that gets, yes, see, there it is.
The impact of silence, yes.
Yeah, I'll make sure that it's in the comments or in the body of I can't think of the word, the write-up.
And sometimes we don't realize how deeply we've been impacted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's allowing ourselves to be curious. Like, where did this come from? Do I really need to play by this old rule anymore? And most of the time is no.
Yeah. When starting to recognize that there is a rule that you've been following.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that can be mind-blowing. That can change everything.
Awareness marks the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Exactly. How about you, Vasi?
Oh, love everything that you said, Stephanie. That's also true. What I would like to add to the conversation about investing in your voice is it's really an act of self-love and compassion. Because we come from places that we may not have consciously chosen. I do believe our soul chose for us to have that experience or experiences and then to rise from them, to really understand who we are and to have a sense of ownership around what it means to be ourselves. And when you invest in your voice, whatever that looks like, for me, I'll just share, investing in my voice has looked like everything from personal development to professional development, to subconscious belief clearing, to healing creativity wounds. I mean, it can look like so many different things, as well as speaking, like, public speaking and actually being in front of audiences and having a sense of what it means to stand in your power and your truth, even though you know that there are some people that may not be in agreement with you. Mm-hmm. So when you invest in your development and your power, then when you're speaking your truth, like we are here today, right, in front of others, It's like that investment, it doesn't feel hard. It feels like you're just being yourself, that you're showing up in your leadership. And that's what is needed to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is needed to make this a place where we can all thrive and co-create and collaborate,
Yeah.
for sure. And so I know I went a little off tangent there. I'm just sort of following the energy that's wanting to come through
Yeah.
in this moment. And that's what investing in my voice has done for me. It's allowed me to really show up and to kind of empty myself, right? And to just trust the word and the energy, and not even the words, but knowing the frequency that's coming through, and whoever needs to hear it will hear it,
Yeah.
and whatever it means to them. And I'm so surprised sometimes that when I say something, people will remember and tell me back, and they can be in the same room and they can hear two different things. Because not only are we hearing through our filters, right?
Right.
And to the degree that we've invested in our own voice, but we're also hearing whatever is important for us,
Mm-hmm.
for our own growth. And I love what Stephanie said about curiosity. And I would just add, it's like be even curious to listen to yourself, right? To
Mm.
listen to how you talk to yourself. So I'm going back to the self-love that I started with, is listen with self-love, speak with self-love, question with self-love.
Mm.
Yeah, that's your own voice allows it to come through more clearly and more with greater joy as well.
I love that. So good. I'm glad that you followed that energy.
Me too. It was more fun for me.
Because to add to that, I think that many of us don't trust our own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And we look to validation and verification from the outside world. And a lot of this we learn in our formative years. And so investing in our voice is also stepping more deeply into our own internal trust.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. And I think that comes in layers too, doesn't it? It's like you have to peel back and unfold that trust. And I think that if you think back to your 5-year-old self, or even younger for some of us, that you did have a trust in yourself at one time, and you can return to that core essence of your own trust, your inner trust. So I absolutely love that.
What I would add to that is an assumption that I used to have, and I found that a lot have, which is I will trust myself, or I will trust my voice when I'm good enough.
Mm-hmm.
To go
Mhm.
back to what you were saying, Josette, earlier about not being good enough. Or I will trust when I'm invited to step forward, or I'm
Mm.
asked, or I'm shown some proof that what I have is important and valuable. And actually, trust is built the opposite way. Trust is built from within,
Mm-hmm.
from stepping out and continuing to be in that authenticity and that purpose and that alignment. That's how trust is built. So we actually had it backward, which is why it's taken many of us so
Yes.
long to really speak our authentic voice and share it, whether it be through speaking, writing, whatever. So I want to put out an invitation, and perhaps we're in a closing place,
Yeah.
Josette,
Yeah.
but I want to put out an invitation to anyone that's listening now or in the replay to show up for yourself in small ways
Mm.
of trust in yourself. And that's when your leadership will flourish, and your
Yeah.
voice will not only give you so much joy, but will be received in the world for exactly who's meant to receive it. And trust that.
Mhm.
Trust that.
Yeah, right? As Stephanie said earlier, that anything that's meant for you is not going to pass you by. I'm paraphrasing what you said, but that's essentially what you were saying. And I absolutely love that. I'd like to also just kind of like wrap that up with pointing out that that inner trust, the more that you trust yourself, the less competitive you're going to feel, the more supported you're going to feel, and the better leader you can be. So I think that that just kind of hit the nail on the head. And And we've now put a pin in it. That's not really the right phrase, but it sounded good for a second.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity that if we're not trusting something that comes through for us, again, getting curious of like, why don't I trust this?
Mm.
You know, do I have a limiting belief? Where is this coming from? Is this mine? Is it true? We can get curious with those questions. And most of the time, we'll find it was a message somebody told us, it was somebody projecting their energy because we're shining and it may make them feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go shine.
Yes.
We're all meant to shine in our own unique ways.
I heard someone say recently that I was listening to on a podcast, and they said that the phrase "you're too big for your britches" was really more about you're being too big for me.
Mhm.
And I love that. I have not forgotten it and thought it was so great. And that's leading me to wrap up our beautiful session, which we could keep going on. Um, but I do want to thank you both for being here and sharing your wisdom with our audience and having this conversation. I love the way that, each question unfolds the next and allows us to explore something within each one of those questions in different ways. And you both bring such knowledge and wisdom and beauty to the audience listening and anyone listening to the recording. So I want to thank you so much for being here. I feel so grateful to have you both here with me. And I'd like to end today with a quote. The soul doesn't rush, it reveals. So just keep asking yourself, what is wanting to be revealed to you? If you have a problem, what does it want to reveal to you? So until next week, everybody, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.